You notice it before anyone else does, not in a single moment, but across weeks, months, a slow erosion. You're not failing, you're not collapsing, you're just softer, less sharp. The urgency that once propelled you forward has been replaced by something quieter, something you mistake for maturity. But it's not maturity, it's compromise dressed as wisdom. Most men enter their 30s with momentum. You've built something: career, relationships, routines. You've survived your 20s, that chaotic laboratory of trial and error. You assume the next decade is about refinement, about settling into the life you've earned. And that's where the edge disappears, because settling is the first symptom of internal decay. Here's what actually happens. You stop questioning your choices. The job you once took as a stepping stone becomes the job you defend. The relationship you fought for becomes the relationship you maintain. The body you once pushed becomes the body you tolerate. You tell yourself you're being practical, realistic, responsible. But responsibility without intention is just compliance. The problem isn't that you've stopped growing, it's that you've stopped demanding growth from yourself. You've replaced internal authority with external approval. The validation you used to create, you now seek from your partner, your boss, your peers. You've outsourced your sense of worth, and once you do that, you've already lost. Think about the last time you did something that scared you. Not thrilled you, not excited you, scared you. Something that made you question whether you could actually pull it off. If you can't remember, you've been living in the comfort zone for too long. Comfort is a slow poison. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't crash through your door and destroy your life overnight. It whispers. It negotiates. It tells you that you've earned the right to coast. But here's the truth. You haven't earned anything. You're borrowing against future potential, and the interest compounds in silence. James Clear talks about the plateau of latent potential, the idea that results lag behind effort. Most men understand this intellectually, but they misapply it. They think it means they should wait patiently for results while they stay consistent. No. It means the decay you're experiencing now is the result of decisions you made months, even years ago. The comfort you chose back then is the fog you're navigating now. And the choices you make today, they're setting the terms for who you'll be in 3 years. You're not static. You're either sharpening or dulling. There is no neutral. The edge you lose in your 30s isn't physical, not primarily. Sure, recovery takes longer and the metabolism shifts, but that's manageable. The real loss is psychological. You stop viewing yourself as the protagonist of your own life. You become the supporting character. You defer, you accommodate, you manage expectations rather than exceed them. And slowly, imperceptibly, your identity becomes a reflection of the roles you play rather than the principles you embody. You become the employee, the partner, the father, the provider, all necessary roles. But if those roles define you, you're already hollow. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting, that the impediment to action advances action. But he also knew something darker, that the mind, left undirected, will adapt to comfort just as easily as it adapts to struggle. Your mind will find equilibrium wherever you place it. If you place it in ease, it will justify ease. If you place it in discipline, it will justify discipline. The question is, who's deciding where your mind goes? Most men don't decide. They drift. They let the environment shape them. The job demands this, the relationship requires that, the kids need attention, the mortgages do. All true, all real, but none of it exempts you from the responsibility of self-authorship. You think you're being selfless by sacrificing your edge for stability, but you're not. You're being cowardly because the moment you abandon your internal authority, you become a burden. Not immediately, not visibly, but over time, the resentment builds. You resent the job that doesn't fulfill you. You resent the partner who doesn't see you. You resent the life you've built because somewhere, deep down, you know you didn't build it. You accepted it. And the people around you feel that. They sense the absence of intentionality. They might not articulate it, but they know. The energy shifts. Respect erodes, not because you've done anything overtly wrong, but because you've stopped doing anything overtly right. You've become predictable, safe, manageable, and no one respects that. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The edge you've lost isn't about talent or ambition. Those are surface-level explanations. The real issue is deeper. It's about identity. Somewhere along the way, you stopped asking yourself, "Who am I becoming?" You started asking, "Who do they need me to be?" And that question, repeated enough times, becomes a prison. Robert Greene talks about the law of power. Never outshine the master. But he also talks about the danger of becoming the servant. If you spend your life managing other people's expectations, you forfeit the right to manage your own. The edge you had in your 20s wasn't about recklessness, it was about sovereignty. You made decisions based on internal criteria, not external validation. You took risks because the risk itself was the point. You didn't need permission. Now, you ask for it constantly. You negotiate with yourself. You wait for the right time, the right circumstances, the right mood. But there is no right time. There's only now, and the decision you make within it. So what do? First, stop lying to yourself about comfort. Comfort is not peace. Peace is the state you achieve after struggle, after you've faced something difficult and come through it. Comfort is what you settle for when you're too afraid to face anything at all. You want peace? Earn it. Second, rebuild your internal authority. Start small. Make a decision today that you don't need to justify to anyone. Not your partner, not your boss, not your friends. Something that's purely yours. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be intentional. Maybe it's training at a specific time, no negotiation. Maybe it's saying no to a commitment that drains you. Maybe it's starting a project you've been delaying because you're not sure how it'll be received. The content doesn't matter. The principle does. You're reclaiming the right to self-author. Third, accept that reclaiming your edge will create friction. People are used to the version of you that accommodates. When you stop accommodating, they'll resist. They'll call it selfish. They'll question your priorities. Let them. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your sovereignty is.
Musashi spent years alone refining his swordsmanship, not because he was antisocial, but because mastery requires isolation. You can't sharpen a blade in a crowd. The noise, the opinions, the compromises, they dull you. You don't need to abandon your life, but you do need to create space within it. Space where the only voice that matters is yours. B.J. Fogg talks about behavior design, that lasting change doesn't come from willpower, it comes from environment. If your environment is designed around comfort and compromise, that's what you'll produce. If you redesign it around intentionality and discipline, that's what you'll become. Start with one corner of your life, your morning, your workspace, your physical training. Make it non-negotiable, not because you're obsessed with control, but because you understand that the man who controls nothing controls his own decline. Here's the quiet truth most men avoid. You're not losing your edge because life got harder. You're losing it because you stopped treating yourself like someone worth sharpening. You've become a resource for everyone else, the dependable one, the steady one, the one who shows up and manages and provides. But who's managing you? If the answer is no one, you're in trouble. Because without self-management, without internal discipline, you're not steady, you're stagnant. And stagnant water breeds rot. You don't need motivation. Motivation is a fleeting chemical reaction, and it's useless when the moment demands more than you feel capable of giving. You need identity, a clear, unshakable sense of who you are and what you stand for. And identity isn't found, it's built. One decision at a time, one uncomfortable choice at a time, one moment of friction where you could have compromised but didn't. The edge you had at 25 wasn't better than what you're capable of now. It was just louder, more visible, fueled by inexperience and adrenaline. The edge you can build at 35 is quieter, sharper, more dangerous, because it's not reactive, it's deliberate. You've seen enough to know what works and what doesn't. You've made enough mistakes to understand the cost of drift. You have the raw material for mastery. The only question is whether you'll use it or whether you'll let it sit dormant while you manage everyone else's expectations. Seneca said it best, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of what you're afraid of, the judgment, the friction, the discomfort, it's not as bad as the slow suffocation of living a life you didn't choose. So choose. Not tomorrow, not when things settle down, now. Because the edge doesn't return on its own. You rebuild it. One decision, one boundary, one refusal to compromise on what matters. And if you don't, that's fine too. The world has plenty of room for men who settled. But you already know how that story ends.